Broken dreams, I follow mine to the end of my borrowed time. I've been walking down this road too long. Got my bags packed and I hit the door. Then I make a stop at the liquor store. Cause my will is weak but my whiskey is strong.
If you want to go way back to the inception of Agenda, I guess the whole point of it was to do something different than what you had at all those shows you just named, specifically ASR. When I started off, I was working with a small brand called Green Apple Tree, and we were actually a customer of ASR, and we were going to their show, and basically because we were a new brand that wasn't a core action sports brand, we kind of just kept getting shoved in the corner. You know, we went to 2 or 3 shows in a row, and every time, you know, it was hard for us to get any attention because we weren't Volcom, Billabong, Hurley. And I guess, you know, the really initial intent of Agenda was to give attention to kind of newer, up-and-coming brands that didn't have the marketing power and the athletes that some of the bigger brands had, so we could kind of give ourselves a focus. So that was the really initial concept of it, and through the years it's really grown and become a lot of other things, and now we do have a lot of those big brands that initially we were trying to go against. So the concept is ever evolving, but, you know, the really initial concept is to give some energy and some shine onto up-and-coming small brands.
Yeah, it's working again.
Yeah, I mean, definitely when you went to the last, I would say 3 or 4 years of shows, everybody was just, you know, doom and gloom. All the retailers are doing bad. The brands are pulling out of the shows. I guess our biggest thing, our biggest point of differentiation was that we made our show really affordable, and we made it so it wasn't about who could build the biggest booth, where, you know, you kind of look at Agenda, you can have a brand like Adidas, which is, you know, a $10 billion plus brand next to some brand that's a $1 million brand, and just aesthetically on the outside, their booth could be the same size, they could be right next to each other and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference, and they both probably spent a similar amount of money. So, you know, that was probably our biggest advantage, was people weren't spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to come to Agenda. They're pumping that money back into marketing or parties or things to make the show more exciting, or just saving money, which made people excited in general. So, you know, really kind of staying away from the traditional overpriced trade show costs.
Sometimes you stay, hey.
What am I supposed to do?
Agenda has addressed that by really going back to, you know, kind of look at what's the whole point of everyone's coming out. The number one focus is to sit there and write orders with retailers. So we try to put that at the forefront and let all the other stuff go away. We actually put some rules in place, like at Agenda, you can't have any promotional models standing in front of your booth handing out swag. You can't have girls standing in bathing suits. You know, you're not really allowed to have any stickers. You know, all these kind of things that you would associate with like going to ASR in the heyday with all these like handouts and this kind of shit show going on in the aisleways. Even though that's cool and exciting, it's still not the main purpose. And I think all the other shows went to, you know, when the business wasn't good, they go, oh, it's a marketing expense, or it's good for press. Well, we wanted to make it, no, it's here, it's good for business. So we try to bring in as many buyers, do the show during a time when it's actually good for writing orders, which actually ASR at a point was doing the show during bad times of the year that were bad for writing orders. So it's everything from the date to the rules that we have, to even the display rules and the way people are allowed to set up their booths, how big the booths are, even limiting the amount of staff each brand brings to the show. It's just the people who need to be there, rather than a bunch of people who just want to come and hang out and drink beer. We implemented a lot of rules and regulations to kind of keep it business focused. I think, you know, there's 3 main things we're doing. One, and I kind of stated it before, but to restate it, is we're doing the show during the dates when the brands need to book the orders. And basically in early January and late July are the key times for brands to book spring and fall. And some of the other shows, we're letting their shows fall into late August, and even Surf Expo and ASR were in September. And actually a lot of the brands, especially for shoes, are done booking them. So as long as we put the show in a time frame that the buyers can actually come out and pre-book, people are going to come. I think us having the right brands that people want to see there in one convenient location is important, where other shows, you know, they have just surf or just skate. You know, Agenda kind of puts surf, street, skate all together in one place, and the stories evolve. They're not just surf, they're not just skate anymore. They can come and get all their buying done. And the third thing we've done is, instead of investing our money back into giving it to third-party organizations for, you know, Agenda's not endorsed by the Skateboard Association or the Surf Manufacturer Association. A lot of those shows were giving money to those associations, which are great organizations. We actually take some of that money and we invest it into the retailers. So we spend about $100,000 a show flying out buyers and putting them in hotel rooms, actually guaranteeing they're going to be there and helping them out in their hard time through the bad economy, still attend the shows and not just say, oh, I'll go next year when business is better. Definitely, you know, the show was founded in California, and it's still our largest show, but we always look to the Northeast, in New York specifically, as a great place to do the show because it's about 40% of our population in the United States, but only about 13 to 15% of the action sports goods are sold up there. So we always viewed it as an important place to do the show, and even though it's not the biggest market, we felt like it was being underserved, so we felt it was really important to go there. And we just really look to cities where we feel like a lot of stuff is happening is being underserved by the action sports or streetwear market, or there's a lack of shows being represented there. So of course Tokyo is a natural. In the future we're looking at places like Sao Paulo, Brazil, you know, those kind of all key cities around the world. You would be surprised there's a lack of organization on these trade shows and events for the B2B industry and the action sports, streetwear, and sneaker market. So yeah, it's definitely essential for us to grow and expand into these territories, and there's a huge opportunity for us to do so. It feels really good to be in the position that we're in today, and you know, I'm not sure if I ever knew we would be exactly here. I thought maybe we would evolve differently, where we'd be something just as big as ASR, but maybe alongside of them. If you go back to our initial mission statements, there's actually kind of preaching against some of the core action sports brands, and at some point, you know, we kind of assimilated or got together with them, and it actually made us stronger, but it wasn't our initial goal. But it's definitely flattering to be where we are today and have some of the brand partnerships we have. And I guess the three most important things we did to get us here was, I think people respected that it was a grassroots movement. You know, Agenda started off as something in a restaurant. I was 18 or 19 years old when Agenda launched. I think people liked that, even though in the beginning they didn't do it. People were always watching us and they were interested, and you know, we were the opposite of all the corporately run trade shows, and everyone always took an interest and gave us compliments, and they liked being a part of a grassroots movement because essentially the surf and skate industries way back in the day were kind of grassroots movements, and they kind of related to it. So I think just being independent and not being part of some big conglomerate was probably the strongest thing that we had going for us. I think being aggressive and going after brands that were kind of out of our reach was probably the second best thing that we did. You know, we were calling up brands like Volcom and Quicksilver our first year, even when we knew they had no chance of coming with us, but they thought it was almost like cute that we were calling them, and they were like, who are you? Like, really? You know, and I think people liked that. We just kind of reached for something that was way beyond our grasp, and eventually we got it. And even by the second show, actually Nike Skateboarding joined on, and some corporate companies that I never thought would have done it did. And I think creative marketing, you know, we, instead of just like putting an ad with a surfer on it, instead of like, or a skater, like, oh, Agenda's this date in San Diego, we always like went out to a lot of like street and graffiti artists and created like really interesting advertisements and viral videos and things that people would collect and save. And even though they didn't relate to the show or the artwork had nothing to do with the message we were pushing, it was just kind of cool and different. And if you look at all the stuff all our competitors were doing, it was like, you know, a guy in a suit and a tie saying, come to Magic. You know, we just did, you know, everyone was going right, we always went left, and it seemed to work for us.